Hello, and today we're joined by Anna Daróczi from Phiren Amenca. Anna, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, we want to talk about young Roma people and hate speech. Can you tell us a little bit about the situation at the moment in Hungary and more broadly in Europe? What are you seeing online and what are you hearing from young people, young Roma people that you're speaking to?
So, I will talk more generally, but of course, as I'm based in Hungary and I'm in touch daily with a lot of Hungarian young Roma people, maybe their experiences are much more visible to me. But in general, I can say that Roma in general and the young Roma are very much exposed to hate speech online and offline, but I guess now we are talking about online more. What we have seen, and that's why we started working on this topic, is that they don't really have the tools and the knowledge. So even though this generation, the new generation, which is younger than me, so whatever generation that is called, grew up in the digital era, right? So you would think that they know how to do stuff, how to find information, how to debunk fake news. But what we see is that they don't. So very often they get information which is not true, and it's very complex because then whatever they read online about Roma, let's say, it can also affect their own sense of identity. So very often they internalize what they hear and read and see. But most importantly, they don't really have the means to fight against online hate speech. So of course, they know that you can report stuff online, and even though when you report, very often nothing happens, the opposite happens often. So there is a story from a few days ago when 2-3 of our volunteers in Hungary went to a shoe shop, and they got some racist, I wouldn't say attacks, but verbal attacks, and they posted the case on Facebook so that everybody sees, and they also tried to contact some media agencies, and in one day their report was deleted or blocked from the social media because probably somebody reported them. So what happens very often in terms of reporting or posting something online, that the victims get banned or blocked, and it also happens on a higher level. So in Hungary there is hate speech regulation, and according to experts, I'm not a lawyer, but according to lawyers, the regulation is fine. It's okay. It's the way the law enforcement agencies deal with it are not adequate because they are not well educated on the topic. They don't really have contact with the minoritized or racialized groups, and maybe they don't have the willingness either. So we do think that it's super, super important to get in touch with these people who work either at the social media platforms or who work in law enforcement, to have a personal connection, so that they understand that it's not just a legal matter and things happening on paper, but there are human beings behind who are affected and whose everyday life and self-worth is affected, and to educate them. So we do try, not very successfully, because somehow they are not very open to come to the trainings or events we organize for them. That's one thing. And another issue, at least in Hungary, but I guess it's true in many other places, that as it says that anti-Gypsyism is the last acceptable form of racism in Europe, and very often politicians themselves are the perpetrators, let's say, or people close to politics. Like last week, I think, one of the esteemed constitutional law professors posted a text on his Facebook profile, something about that according to statistics, the average IQ level of Hungarians would be okay or even great, but we have the Roma here who bring down the statistics because they have low-level IQ because of their Indian origin. Doesn't make any sense, I think, but it spreads through social media, and he is very well known and followed. And what happened is that probably many people reported this, but it was not removed by the platform. He removed it after a few days. Probably somebody told him that maybe it's not the best thing to communicate. Yeah, and I think it brings us to a bigger or more general topic, is the low capacity for advocacy of Roma communities and groups in this issue area, but I think it's true in general in any other policy matters or policy issues. So maybe on the European level, I can say that we are quite successful because we are in many consultational bodies with the European Commission. But when it comes to national level, it's much more difficult.
So let's move on to civil society organisations, Anna. Can you talk to us about what challenges they're experiencing in supporting young Roma people or Roma people in general?
Now I try to talk about Hungary because we all know that the civic space has been shrinking in Europe, and that's of course true for Roma NGOs or especially grassroots organizations. In Hungary, because they are grassroots organizations, they don't have the capacity, the knowledge, the skills very often to diversify their funding. So mainly they are dependent on state or governmental funding, and the Hungarian government decides who they are friendly with or not so friendly with. And also, so we had this very big project for 2 years on combating online hate speech against vulnerable groups. And one of the findings or one of our recommendations to whoever has the money or donors is to provide sustainable funding for these organizations, and especially in the field of tackling online hate speech, because my experience also that it's a very diverse field. You have to be knowledgeable in many different areas, like how artificial intelligence works and how it can be utilized, or what are the harms of it. Also, you have to become professional in law, and very different aspects. And also, even for being able for a civil society organization to monitor or report online hate speech, they do need the capacity. And for having people to do it full-time or part-time, or as part of their job and not just as a hobby every evening, they do need funding. So I would say that that's one of the most difficult things, and that's why my organization hasn't been doing online hate speech monitoring and reporting as a, part of our basic operations.
Yeah, I mean, we hear from civil society organisations engaged with it. It's very, very complicated now that the Digital Services Act has come in. I think platforms have tailored the reporting mechanism in-app to accommodate reporting illegal hate speech, and the result is it's actually more onerous for civil society organisations. So we're finding even organisations where they have legal support to understand, to navigate the new system, it's time consuming. So we did a recent needs assessment survey, and one of the recommendations is really social media platforms need to standardise and simplify reporting to make it accessible to everybody. you shouldn't need to be a lawyer to be able to understand it.
And not even for civil society. Like the other day, I was trying to report something, some anti-Gypsyist hate speech, and it was very difficult to figure out what to click on and what to choose and what category does it fit in.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly what we're talking about. And it needs to be the same across all platforms, and it just needs to be easy to do, because at the moment I think it's a barrier.
And even if you're a trusted flagger, I think that doesn't become much easier. And I'm not sure if I'm right here, but they had to reapply now that the DSA is in effect. And I mean, capacity.
Yeah, it's changed actually since February 2024. So now trusted flagger, the term only applies to people designated by your digital service coordinator in your country.
Okay.
So there's an application process, and you do need to apply, and there are standards.
And the the coordinator comes from.
It's appointed by the government. So I think
there we are.
Yeah, it should be a body independent of the government. I'm not sure who the person is in Hungary. But and then there is still a direct channel with platforms called, trusted partners or community partners, and that line still exists. But hopefully tweaks, and hopefully things will evolve sooner.
It's also very difficult to follow the changes, right? Because maybe a good policy is successfully advocated for, but then everything changes, right? Because of technology evolving.
That's it. But I mean, definitely more awareness of the DSA and its implications, because actually it's a good thing for vulnerable communities.
Yeah.
On paper, we just need to let everybody know about it. But I wanted to talk to you about the role of media and journalists, Anna. Do you think they can improve the situation for young Roma people?
I think they could, and I also think they should. And I do understand that. So we had also within this chat project, we had different events, public events where journalists were invited. We had a roundtable discussion organized by Political Capital on the media representation of vulnerable groups in Hungary. And there were some young journalists there, and obviously they were very frustrated, because I'm not saying that they don't want to be better at what they are doing, but of course we know that the media agencies have their own aims. I mean, they want to generate income, they want to generate more clicks, and very often already the titles and the leads to their articles are outrageous. And for civil society, it usually takes 1 or 2 days to make them change the title. So journalists also have a pressure from the editorial staff. We were also planning to hold a training event for practicing journalists, but they were not very interested to be trained. So we decided to cooperate with the university, the media department of the biggest university in Budapest. So we did train, I think, 40-something future journalists on how to report and how not to report about issues related to vulnerable groups. And I can say that now we have a methodology to do that, and we are planning to continue, because, it's huge. The role of media is not only social media, but mostly online media platforms is huge, because for many people, that's the only source they get their information from. And how they talk about, how they edit the videos or the articles, whether they consult experts who are members of the communities before publishing the article, it's super, super important. And not only for the mainstream society to get better quality information, but also for the vulnerable groups, because it has a very negative effect on their psychological well-being.
I mean, can you give examples of what you've heard and seen about the impact of mainstream media or online media's coverage of young Roma people?
Directly, I cannot answer this question because we don't really talk about, okay, have you read this article? How do you feel about that? Which, by the way, we are planning to do in the future. But I very often, especially when I go to smaller communities or people who are not from Budapest or people who are not in our circles and maybe more prone to government propaganda, they internalize many of the stereotypes which they read online. And why it's also very dangerous is that they somehow play out vulnerable groups against each other. So that's also an issue we try to work on, intersectionality, and how there is a need for solidarity and cooperation among NGOs, but also just communities of different vulnerable groups. So when we were monitoring online hate speech, we had 10 or 15 volunteers to do the annotations, who were all members of different vulnerable groups. Like there were some Jewish young people, Roma people, youth belonging to the LGBTQ community, and also some who are Muslims. And one of the most interesting outcome, which we didn't really expect, is that because of the psychological well-being, it was important for us that Roma people don't annotate texts related to Roma, so that they are not, they don't have to read hate speech against their own group 8 hours a day. So we mix them. And they did learn a lot about each other and what are the stereotypes and what are the types of hate speech their peers experience. And I think it was super important because it did build solidarity and understanding, and I guess that's the way forward.
Yeah, it sounds like a fabulous initiative. It's such a clever idea, and not exposing young Roma or young Jewish children to hate speech leveled against them, because nobody needs to be re-traumatized or triggered.
Not really.
So what support is there generally available for young Roma people who've been the victims of online or offline abuse or hate?
It's very difficult because in Hungary there used to be a few organizations dealing not specifically with online hate speech, but providing legal aid for Roma, but other communities as well. But in the last 10-15 years, they somehow disappeared because their funding got pulled and they don't exist anymore. So no, not a lot. So they don't have a lot of support. Civil society organizations such as Háttér Society or TASZ, like the Civil Liberties Union, they do try to provide this, and they do try to spread the information about themselves, but we all know how social media works, so it doesn't necessarily reach everyone who needs it. And of course, they don't have all the capacities they need. So what we try to do is to support them in the ways we can, and that's why we are planning to set up we call it now, as a working title, a support group for vulnerable communities who are or are potential victims of hate speech online or offline. Because of this mental or psychological well-being issue, sometimes when in informal settings, when we talk to these people and hate speech comes up, we realize that very often they don't even realize that they are victims of hate speech, because we are so used to these hurtful and hateful comments and articles online that it's kind of, natural. It's part of our life. So we do need to talk about these with young Roma and young non-Roma people as well.
And Anna, are there positive signs on the horizon for young Roma people? Are there engaging initiatives that you can see will make a difference? Or
I think one of the very nice things coming out from this awful political situation we're in is exactly this this solidarity among different groups or organizations. So when we started working with different religious or church-based communities and also LGBTQ organizations, it's getting more and more close. So we take part in different projects together, but also we go and support each other when there's a protest or there is an open letter needs to be written, which might not seem, huge, but I think it is because we need each other's support. That's one thing. And if we operate on the basis of human rights, then it's our moral obligation to stand up for any community or people who are hurt, not just our own.
That's perfect. Anna Daróczi, thanks so much for joining us on Zooming In on Hate.
Thank you very much.